This is John Rejba from Wet Tropics, and this is As the Story Grows.
Welcome to the next chapter of As the Story Grows. I'm Brian Patton. This week, Wet Tropics frontman John Rejba joins the podcast. You might also know John from a little band called Boys Life, as well as The Farewell Bend. A huge shout out to Rob Froese from Friends Club Records for making this interview happen. This is one of my favorite interviews of 2021, and that's saying something because I've had some amazing conversations this year. John talks about witnessing the effects of COVID in his neighborhood, having to reconstruct album artwork for reissues, Boys Life's Dialer, and all things Wet Tropics. John was also kind enough to indulge me in a conversation about emo. Thanks, John. Wet Tropics' debut record, Everybody Get In, is getting the vinyl treatment from Friends Club, and you can pre-order that record now. Cassettes are sold out, but you can snag a digital copy on Bandcamp right now. This is a super fun chat, so enjoy it and then share it with your friends. And without further ado, here's John Rejba from Wet Tropics. How you been?
I'm well, and how are you?
I'm good. How have you survived the last year and a half of COVID and all the everything?
Well, just like everybody else, COVID has completely changed the dynamics of everything, from economics to the job market to the music industry to you name it. I think COVID has touched everybody in some capacity, whether or not you lost a loved one or someone you know, or it touches you in the strangest ways.
Yeah.
I live across the street from a food pantry, and it's been there for many years. And when they first opened, I was already here when they opened, but you would never ever see anybody in front of it. You'd never see anybody waiting in line. And especially over COVID, the lines got incredibly long, and they're still long. You used to never see anybody in front of the food pantry at all.
No.
But now you see people in front of it 3 days a week. People of all ages, of all genders, all backgrounds. So it's been really revealing to see how society has coped with COVID. So,
yeah. None of us were really. I guess some people were aware of how fragile the whole system was, and when it collapsed and people, like so many people, just got fucked over in all of the lockdowns and everything. It was crazy. And being a musician, like the music industry just not went away, but like bands' livelihoods, you can't tour. Like, what do you do, right? Like,
well, yeah, I mean, fortunately, my livelihood is not based on touring. I feel for a lot of friends and acquaintances who are in that position, and I understand that many times these people have have families to feed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just about, playing the big rock show.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, it was incredibly difficult. I lost I was laid off shortly before, COVID took hold of the world. And I was in the process of trying to find a new job.
Oh man.
And I started getting emails from employers saying, we're not filling this position. We're not sorry at this time, we're not filling this position. So I went back to school.
Oh man.
Nice. I went back to school and I'm getting my master's in education. Oh, wow. So I come from pretty wonky academic background. So it was it was actually pretty beneficial for me because of the lockdown and the fact that all school became like Zoom oriented. Yeah. It didn't matter what time of day I took the course or whatever. I was like, this isn't happening. I don't have a job. I don't. All I have to do now is like occasionally play music if I can. Jump into a Zoom session, buy a bunch of books, and get into a bunch of debt. So, and get my master's degree. So
perfect.
So that's what's going on. And right now I am currently student teaching at an urban high school in Chicago. And some days are absolutely completely amazing. And then there's other days when you just like, oh my God, what am I doing? So that's kind of what's been going on in my camp since things started going nuts. But there's also been a lot of really good stuff too. So Wet Tropics, we put out our cassette on Friends Club, and then in the hot summer, we got a chance to, when things were kind of simmering down, we got a chance to make a video, and we did all that stuff. And I got connected with Sweet Cheetah PR, and I hooked them up with Rob at FCR and all this stuff in it. There's just a lot of really great stuff happened for me through COVID that I was quite pleasantly surprised that it actually happened. The Farewell Band put out a reissue on Spartan Records for In Passing, and I did all the artwork and everything to get it rebuilt because that record, the lead singer Jason Farrell from Blue Tip it was one of those weird moments when Blue Tip was touring a lot at the time, and he lost the artwork.
Oh man.
He lost all the artwork for that record. So I literally, I think it was around April during COVID. I jumped on the web and got connected with a group here in Chicago, a philanthropic group that has a bunch of grant money from like Kodak and all this kind of stuff. And they have this huge lab downtown in this loft where they have drum scanners and 1200 DPI scanners and all this stuff. And I was like, hey, how do I come down here and use all this stuff? And it's like, okay, well, tell us about your project. And they're like, oh, that's awesome. We're totally interested in helping you out. And it's like, you can do as many scans and do all that stuff. All you have to do, your visit is $50. Just come in. And so I spent the day there. I spent a day there with one guy, and he's like, okay, so here's how the drummer, the scanners work. I was like, yeah, I got all this stuff. And because I was in publishing for 20 years. And so desktop publishing, Photoshop and Illustrator and all that stuff I used for eons and eons. And so I was like, yeah, I got it. And it was like, it was really fun. It was a really great experience. But the thing is, I had a hard time finding all the images for that record.
Oh yeah.
And so I reached out to a friend in Lawrence, Kansas, a good friend of mine. And I was like, Aaron, I know you have a copy of the LP, because I needed the biggest photos I could. I needed everything. Because originally it only came out on CD, and Slow Dime decided they wanted to put it out on LP. So all they did was they sent it to the vinyl plant, and they just blew it up.
Oh man.
So it was like,
grainy and
but the thing was at the time I didn't really know how Jason put it all together. So me and him are like emailing and messaging each other. He's like, yeah, I think I did this and I think I did that. And here's the thing is, like, back then in the 90s, desktop publishing was like really brand new stuff.
Yeah.
And so what he did, so I had to do leading on letters and kerning and all this kind of stuff, gaps in between, letters and all this kind of stuff. He literally like outlined them and then made them a solid object. And then he would space them out by like lines, by sight.
Oh man,
it was really insane.
Wild.
So when I first started working on it, I'm on the super powerful Mac, and I'm just letting Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop just do all the work and do all the leading and everything. And it was very, very mechanical. So I literally had to break up everything and space everything. I had a background image that I would work off of the original image, so I could reset up the layout and everything. And I literally had to take every single letter and like kern everything to get it just right, exactly the way it was and stuff. Because Spartan had asked me, he's like, if you can get as close to the original, it's like, do it, John. So I'm like, okay, John. I was like, I will do my best. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I ended up doing another record of a band called Heavy Seas. My friend Jeff Dean, who does a lot of recording for Wet Tropics and stuff, that's one of his bands. And so that was a lot of fun. And I did a Boys Life cassette too, a live recording from Washington D.C.
Yeah, I got that.
Yeah, a friend of ours. So I'll tell you the backstory behind that one. That was really interesting. So my friend, super old friend of ours named Christopher Preston, he came forward and he's like, hey, I don't know. He sent me an email back in 2015 when he found out what was going on. We're doing some live shows and stuff, and he's like, hey, I don't know if you remember me, so and so. It's like, yeah, I was wanting to know if you guys would be interested if like I tagged along and recorded every single one of the shows. And I was like, well, yeah, okay. So what do we need to pay you? I was like, what do we owe you? He's like, no, you don't owe me anything, man. He's like, this is a bro deal, man. I just want to go and hang out and just like have fun. I'm like, okay, well, let me talk to the guys. So I talked to the guys. They're like, heck yeah, let's do it, and he's like, okay. So, and he eventually, he spent a lot of time just, analyzing them. He did some mixing of them, trying to kind of get them like in a good good space for me to listen to them. And, it took him a couple of years because, he has a job and he's got a family and all that kind of stuff. And just like everybody else, we have lives.
Right.
And so he sent them to me, and, I sat on them for a long time. Then when COVID hit, I wasn't at first, before school started, I wasn't really doing much. I mean, I didn't have a job. I was on the dole, if you want to call it that. But so I was on unemployment insurance and didn't, we couldn't play as a band. Everything's completely shut down. It's like, you know what? This sounds really stupid, but I think I'm just gonna take the best recording and just put it on tape. Just nice. DIY, balls to the wall, no big deal. If somebody, I don't. Did you get it from Rob?
I got it from Rob. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. See, it got down to like around 10 tapes. I got so inundated, like around Christmas last year, like December of last year. I was just like, I couldn't keep up. And then there's a bunch of people like, hey, John, I didn't get, they sent me email. Hey, I didn't get my copy yet, and I was like, damn it. I knew I was forgetting because I didn't want it to be like a big deal. Yeah. I just wanted to put it on Facebook, put a link out there, send it to people and say, hey, here's my email address. If you want a copy, I made 100 of them. And my friends at Worry Records helped me out and get, to do a little bit of duplication and stuff like that. Yeah, I did all the artwork and everything. And the way I mastered it, I didn't break it out. I didn't break it out song by song because when I was listening to it with Brandon's a really super funny guy.
Yeah.
One of my best mates forever. We've known each other since high school, and he's just funny. He has a really great way of telling stories, and many times they become kind of like fishtails and like tall stories.
Yeah.
They get better as he tells them, but they're still true.
Yeah.
But the embellishments get better and better and better.
Yeah.
So I was listening to it. I was like, you know what? Marijuana White House.
The stage banner is so great.
I was like, this is gonna die. Well, and the thing is too, Brandon and Joe lived for many years in DC. They did a band called Canyon together. And so between Kansas City and Washington DC, Brandon had probably lived longer in DC than he had lived in Kansas City. So at that point, I mean, that was literally his home, and him and his wife and kids moved to Louisville. Probably about a year and a half or so before the tour. So it was kind of like a big kind of like homecoming for him. Joe still lives there. So it was, so I mean, it was kind of like, oh yeah, I know you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's like, it was really interesting. It was really great. It was really great playing the Black Cat. I hadn't been back there in many, many years. The last time I played there, it was the old Black Cat. So Black Cat's has been in many locations.
I think it's a third iteration now. I think they just closed their big space because
that was necessity. The upstairs.
Yeah.
No, they closed the downstairs and they only kept the upstairs.
Oh, is that what happened now?
Yeah. So, but the old venue was just a few doors down.
Yeah.
The old one. So, and Jason Farrell did the sign, did the Black Cat sign. So. Yeah, it was really kind of interesting. So it was a lot of fun. It was nice being back there. That street had changed a lot since the last time I'd been there. last time I was there, like Brandon's like, John, man, it's like, remember there used to be that old auto park place across the street. Remember that? I'm like, yeah. He's like, there's a body shop over there. I'm like, yeah, I kind of remember. It's a little foggy, but yeah, it was. I mean, that street used to be really dark and really,
all of it.
But now it's just like this bustling heart of town. It's crazy.
Most of the city's swanky. So I grew up in DC.
Oh, okay.
Moved to Philly for 7 years. I just moved back in May.
Yeah, we spent most of our time in Silver Spring. An old Chevy Chase area over there. So, yeah. Yeah. But that's aside from the northwest side. I mean, that's it in being downtown. So. So that was kind of the whole Boys Life thing. It was it's pretty crazy how it all came together so quickly, and then it's hard being an adult and being thousands of miles away from the people you know, or hundreds of miles away. It's difficult.
You mentioned the farewell band, Spartan repressing. How'd that come about? How'd you get connected with John and Spartan?
Well, it's really interesting. So it came through Giant's Chair, because Paul Ackerman from Giant's Chair was in the farewell band, and I had been reaching out to a lot of labels about doing a repress of it for a long time, because not only was it out of print, but it wasn't in any streaming services or anything. And so it was one of those kind of things where it was like, this really needs to be out there in the world. It's really interesting. How it all came about was kind of exactly how it all came about with Slow Dive. It just kind of like materialized. It's just kind of like snowballed and materialized. And it was interesting. Both people that worked at the record labels, Slow Diamond and Spartan, are named John. So yeah, it only makes it even interesting. But Giant's Chair, got back together and made a incredible record.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. Yeah,
Babylon, and they were just going to put it out themselves. They had a whole a fund, GoFundMe and all that kind of stuff, and they John picked up the record. Picked up the record, and I was like, oh, no way. It's like, Spartan picked up the record. I was like, that's awesome, and we had been kicking around for quite a while, and then one day Paul's like, hey, John wants to do the record, wants to do reissue. And I was like, wow, it's awesome. So so we all started connecting, talking on Facebook Messenger and all that kind of stuff, and all the channels that everybody uses these days, because no one talks on a phone anymore.
Yeah.
And which is really kind of interesting, because back in the day, if we wanted to do any kind of correspondence with Slow Dime back then, very few of us had emails. And if it was probably Hotmail.
Yeah.
So sometimes it would be like a week before we would know what's going on with. So the record's done. We get on our dialer. Do you know what a dialer is?
No.
Do you know what it is? Okay, so all right, so it's one of the original like hackable digital devices in the world. Okay, so we have you had the old payphones.
Mm-hmm.
All right, are you familiar with the old payphones?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you ever put your hand up to if you put the receiver up to your ear and you put in your quarter, you'd hear a little. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
That sound.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Radio Shack used to make this thing called a dialer. It had a little bit of memory in it. I mean, next to nothing, but it probably had more than the space shuttle at the time.
Yeah.
But it was a little pocket dialer that you can type in a bunch of phone numbers, and I think you could put in like five, maybe, probably five. I mean, it was about the size of my hand. I mean, it was pretty big. Well, no, probably about the palm of my hand, about that size. And so what you could do is you could type in a bunch of numbers, and then when you went to dial it, you can put the device up to the mouthpiece where you would speak, and hit the button, and it would dial the phone for you.
Okay.
You wouldn't have to remember it. Okay. So very classy back in the 90s. I mean,
yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, straight up, this is high tech, right? And the hackers of the world. This is probably one of the original hacks, and this will be a good piece for archiving electronic hacking and computer hacking, because we all know about war games, and we all know about Ferris Bueller, stealing the password from the computer and change his grades and all that kind of easy stuff like that. But it was, so what you had to do was all you had to do was change one of the frequency chips inside of it. So you take one out, you'd use soldering iron, you'd open it up to soldering iron, take that one out and replace it with another one, the one that would make the sound. Mm-hmm. And so all you had to do was dial the number. The electronic voice would come over the earpiece. Please deposit $1.75. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, until you had $1.75, and it would make a long distance phone call for you.
Oh, wow. That's wild.
So that's what we used. I mean, everybody used it. Everybody had one. Every band had one. It's like nobody really talks about it, but it's an original hack.
Yeah.
And so don't use my name in this. Use my alias in case I get a call from the FBI or say, you owe so much X amount of money times. I don't think that's gonna happen.
No.
But yeah, I mean, that's the way it was back then.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no instantaneous communication. You didn't know instantaneously if you had a show booked, or you would wait sometimes weeks, sweating, just wondering, oh man, is that person gonna call us back for that basement show? Yeah, they're probably not going to call us back because they don't want to pay for the phone call. Yeah. Sounds like we got to call them back ourselves. Oh, they're not there? okay, we're gonna leave a message at the beep.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it was.
Drive to a venue. It's closed down now. It's yeah.
I mean, it's really wild stuff. So yeah. So with the Farewell Ben stuff, it kind of came together like that, just like it did back in the day. It just kind of materialized, and we worked with all the original people who worked on the record to master and remaster it and all that stuff. It's really great. Brandon reminded me of a bunch of old stories about the whole process of recording that record.
Oh yeah.
Which just totally absolutely blew my mind. Brandon's like, John, do you remember that, the tape machine at West End lost its calibration or something, and the guy couldn't come for like this like certain guy was coming to like calibrate their tape machine. So on a hot summer day, Brandon and Paul Malinowski from Shiner and a couple other people got together and loaded the machine in the back of Brandon's truck from the studio where we recorded it and took the machine to West End so we could mix the record.
Oh my god.
I was like, oh my god, I forgot all about that.
That's wild.
You're like, yeah, you weren't around. You were too busy, doing whatever. And I was like, well, I'm glad I wasn't around for that. So
oh man.
So yeah, there's always there's always some pretty fascinating stories of those days, and just doing the things you had to do just to get things done.
Yeah.
It was some interesting stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Before we talk about Wet Tropics, I want to ask about Boys Life and the Farewell Band, and like, were you guys aware of this like blooming Midwest emo scene at the time, or was it just like, these are our friends all making music that is of a similar ilk?
No, back in the 90s or now?
Yeah, 90s. Yeah, now everybody.
No. You'll see, the interesting thing is, like, Farewell Ben was post emo, it's kind of like post hardcore,
sure, yeah,
kind of thing. And a lot of the songs sound the way they do with the Farewell Ben because of Paul. Paul Ackerman's just a freaking animal. He's just a monster on the drums. He hits harder than I think anybody I have ever played with. Yeah. So I see you have a drum set behind you, but
I do. Yeah.
Do you know they used to make those like Kevlar, like snare head things? Do they still make those?
Yeah.
Yeah, like those like kind of weaved kind of things.
Yeah.
He would break those.
Oh my god.
And the only reason why he would play those because he would break everything else. And he would break those.
Oh man.
And so yeah, he bashes. That's what he does. He learned to play drums to Motley Crue. So that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
And but no, Boys Life was originally people thought we were a punk band in in the Kansas City Lawrence scene.
Yeah.
Like, we opened up for Offspring. We opened up for All. We opened up for just all kinds of just huge punk bands, like all the time. We were like the go-to band to, you know. I'm sure there's probably a lot of other people in the scene that were like, man, I wish we could play that show, kind of thing. And yeah, I mean, I get it. I mean, because I feel that way a lot nowadays. But man, we didn't get that gig. But yeah, I mean, we were like the punk band. We even got booked with Green Day, and we got kicked off because they wanted one of their friends' bands to play with them. What was their name? Shit, I couldn't remember. But we were on the ticket and everything, and it was Boys Lie. It wasn't Boys Life. They misprinted our name on the Ticketmaster ticket.
Oh man.
I had heard from a lot of friends that went to the show that people were yelling and screaming, "Where's Boys Life?" Like kind of stuff, which is great, and made me feel really good at the time. But now, you know, you just whatever. Now it's just a war story. But so you know, nobody really thought of us as like any kind of like anything but like just like a scrappy punk band, you know, that was really into Superchunk and San Diego bands and stuff like that. But we went on tour, and we did our first tour. We did 8 weeks in our shitty 74 blue Ford Econoline. It was a club wagon, so it was actually, you know, state of the art for being 20 years old. But it was, you know, for us, it was the state of the art. And we did 8 weeks, pretty much just straight up basement shows.
Wow.
A couple of maybe a club gig here and there, like in Albuquerque, or like some like, you know, C market venue that was just like really happy to have like an out of town band play their venue, you know, kind of thing. And then the whole time we were doing that, Giant's Chair was going to go out with us for another 8 weeks because their record was coming out. Their first LP was coming out, and you know, they're our best mates. And we the whole time we were going, we'd get back to them. You know, we'd be on the dialer, be like, hey, the show was awesome. The people were really great. We told them that we want to book a show on such and such date. So like what we did was we had this whole kind of thing going where we kind of tested it out.
Yeah.
And got the temperatures of the water. So when Giant's Chair could dive in, we could all dive in together and have a good time. So we did another 8 weeks. We came home for 2 weeks, and then we did another 8 weeks with them on the West Coast too. And it was nuts. It was really good fun. Probably some of the best times I've ever had in my life.
That's awesome.
It was really good stuff. So but the thing was, what happened is that we started getting this thing. Yeah, you guys one of those emo bands? And you know, we didn't really know what it was and stuff. You know, and just like all the rest of the bands, I mean, just like everybody else, you don't want to get pegged as something.
Yeah.
You know, and here's the thing: it's like, but I look back on it. I mean, we were just, you know, indie punk kids that, you know, I went to high school in the 80s. Yeah. And listened to everything from Susie and the Banshees to urban dance squad. You know, I mean, we listened to everything. Yeah. You know, we listened to anything that just like got our rocks off, and we were all skaters, and we're just, that's what you did. You know?
Yeah.
So you know, we didn't really like think of ourselves as like some kind of like thing or like or build ourselves up.
Yeah. Yeah. It just came later. Like this association with bands like Christie Front Drive and Mineral and that whole like conglomeration where it's like they're the same, but none of those bands sound the same at all. I mean, Mineral and Christie do a little bit, but
well, you know, we all really fed off of each other. Like that's what we did. I mean, that's because, you know, when you're broke and you're a band on tour, you know, I would have been wonderful to be a record collector back in the day.
You're right.
Every spare penny I ever had went to either trying to buy, you know, a better guitar, a better amp, or making sure I could eat and had a roof over my head. So back then, you know, you'd feed off the bands you played with, and you'd dub a tape, you know, at a friend's house while you're on tour. Oh, that new Rock from the Crypt record. Yeah, man. It's like I love them. I wish I could, you know, can't afford to buy one myself right now. And when would I ever get a chance to listen to it anyway? Mm-hmm. So you know, it's like, you know, you had some old cassettes in the van, and you just, you know, dub
tape
it
over what was there before.
You tape over it and whatever, or someone would give you a tape or what have you, and I mean, so that, yeah, I mean, that's kind of how that all worked back then, in that era. You know, it wasn't the era of Spotify. We're like, oh yeah, man, I've never heard Spiritualized. Oh, okay, well, all right. You know, jump on Spotify and, you know, hear every single record they have. You know, you couldn't necessarily do that unless you knew someone who's like, you know, an Uber fan kind of thing.
Yeah.
So so that's kind of how that went, you know, and so, you know, feeding off of things, the second Boys Life record was kind of like, we had bashed so hard on our guitars for so long.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, let's bring it back a little bit. Let's, you know, all the stuff that we've learned these last few years of playing, why don't we approach it from a different angle? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how that record came about.
Gotcha. Just
taking what we knew and just looking at it from a different perspective.
Yeah.
That's kind of how that happened.
Current project is Wet Tropics. How did this band start?
Well, it was interesting. It actually came out of another band. I was working on this project called Rare Animals with some friends of mine from California. They're in a band called Die Princess Die, and they're like kind of like a screamo kind of band and stuff. Mm-hmm. And really great. I loved them. And it just kind of, we made the record. I put out the record myself. It was called Arc, and it just you know, it's just one of those things where life situations change, and it just wasn't really happening anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was actually kind of starting to write songs for like the next record, or like where things would probably go with Rare Animals. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, I think I'm just going to keep a lot of this stuff in my back pocket and just like hold on to them. And so, push came to shove and it just wasn't really happening anymore. But so the drummer was like, hey, I still want to jam on some stuff. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So, and it just kind of, I was like, well, hey, I got a bunch of songs. And see, the thing is, I was playing bass in Rare Animals because I played, I play bass. And
yeah.
But, I thought about transitioning into playing guitar and singing, and I'd actually never done it before. I'd never done it before. I was like, okay, well, this is either going to go either really well or it's going to go really bad. And so I just kind of ran with that kind of idea. And, I had some kind of thoughts of like, where's it going to go? That kind of thing. And then I was just like, okay, so, I can actually kind of do this. And so it just began to just kind of develop. And then, new members came along and it's kind of started to just kind of pick up. And, we met Rob through the 90s emo board and all this kind of stuff. And he's like, hey, what are you guys up to? You guys got anything recorded? I was like, well, and this was during COVID.
Yeah.
So we had actually, okay. So the thing was, we got the record done. It was late November before COVID hit. And I was just on the assumption that we would start to we would get it mixed, we'd get it mastered, we begin the whole process of, playing shows, getting something kind of going, and, someone would put out the record. Well, it happened that way, but not exactly the way we thought it would. It came out many months later.
Yeah.
And, it's actually interesting, that the Wet Tropics video that we did, that was the first video I've ever done in my entire life.
That's so funny. It's so wild.
I've never done one before in my entire life. Like the guy who recorded, who videotaped it and everything, did all the editing and all that stuff. Sean Loftus, he's like, John, it's like, blah, blah, blah. He was all like, yeah, man, John's got to be a pro at this stuff. He's probably done a bunch. No,
so funny.
No. Every budget that Boys Life and Farewell Bend ever had, we blew right through it. We never got to that point where, it was back, it was crazy back then too, because if you did a video, if any record label did a video for you, they probably had, they had some high-end, PR, or they had someone in their back pocket they knew that you could probably get it on MTV or something.
Yeah.
Because where else are you going to see it back then? In the 90s, where are you going to see a video?
I remember seeing that Get Up Kids video on MTV, and it was like, oh shit, the Get Up Kids are on MTV.
Exactly. And yeah, and that's some pretty magical stuff.
Yeah.
When you think about it. I mean, it's pretty amazing stuff to be able to see your friends' bands. And we did a lot of touring with Knapsack. Boys Life did. And we're like, holy shit, man. Those guys are on 120 minutes. They're on rotation on 120 minutes, man.
They made it.
It's going to be awesome. It was the worst tour I've ever been on my entire It was horrible. But you know what? The thing is, those guys are my buddies for life now.
Yeah.
Because we all went through trial by fire. Every time I see them, it's just it's like we were never apart. It's pretty interesting. It's pretty funny to see all that. So anyway, that's on that. Yeah.
That's awesome. Was it weird for you when Rob approached you and was like, hey, can we put your album out on cassette tape?
No, not at all. Actually,
you were already doing the DIY thing with the Boys Life thing, so you were aware of like this cassette revival happening, or
yeah, but no, the thing for me, my mates were really, they're like, we need to get this out, and I was like, yeah, I agree, and for me, I'm one of those kind of people that if a door opens, I'm going to walk through it. I'm just going to see what happens. But I have to tell you, I am so lucky and so happy that I've met Rob and the FCR crew, because I have been this. I think I'm probably happier now in my musical relationships and working with people with my babies than I ever have before in my life. I've been courted by major labels. I've been on Cargo, which at the time was pretty much almost like a major label, just slightly below that. I mean, come on, think of the bands that Cargo's putting out.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Rock from the Crypt, Blink 182. Just, I mean, when you finally get to know what their business model, when we finally figured out what their business model was all about, yeah, it left us pretty sad. But yeah, I mean, and and Crank Records, all that stuff too. Slow Dime and FCR have been the only people that have really paid attention to me or cared and even really wanted to like talk to me about like what's really up.
Yeah.
It's great. Love Rob, love chatting with him, and love where everything's going, and I can't I'm a very happy person. So
that's awesome.
I feel pretty lucky. So
yeah.
But, yeah. Not to get emo on you.
Everybody Get In is coming out on vinyl. When this podcast is out, it might be out on vinyl already.
It'll get done. It'll get done. We'll make it all happen at the same time.
It'll be great. That'll be great. What's the future of the band hold?
Yeah, well, right now the single Rat Shredder is ready. And it's mastered. I'm ready to send it off to Rob. I just haven't got around to it yet. I have a good friend of mine, actually, Greg Franklin, who did the artwork for the Boys Life record, the reissue, which is a whole different story. I'll get into that if you want to. But he's doing the artwork for it, and it's going to be kind of a hippie trippy. Kind of Yellow Submarine kind of trip kind of artwork for it, and Rob wants to do a single for it. So we did. There's two versions of it. There's the radio regular. That's one everyone's probably going to want to hear, and then there's the messed up, crazy shredder mix, which is kind of like all apocalyptic with like helicopters and air raid sirens and all kinds of stuff. And it's actually kind of funny, and it's kind of fun little kind of I'm an 80s kid.
Yeah.
So if something seems outlandish, it isn't to me. To like some people,
Yeah,
it's not to me. So
that's awesome. You mentioned the Boys Life reissue. You talked about the Departures and Landfalls with Top Shelf.
Yeah. So my buddy Greg Franklin, who's doing the artwork for Rat Shredder. So that's another record that all the artwork was gone, and actually that artwork was actually done in that was an analog print layout, so it was not done in digital form. And when Cargo folded here in the United States, most everything went to the trash bin.
Oh man.
So I was like, hey, Greg, I was like, would you be interested in doing the artwork? He's like, I would love to. I was like, well, we want to do like a reimagining of it. You think you could do something completely different? We're all work together on it and stuff. And he's like, I got a great idea. Why don't I watercolor the sunset in the barn and all that stuff? I was like, done. I was like, let's move that direction with it. So
nice.
Yeah. So Greg, he's an amazing artist, and he's doing the work on the single. So it should turn out. I think it's going to turn out really great.
Thanks for listening to As the Story Grows. Our intro music was written and composed by Jeremy Hunt. The As the Story Grows theme is by Bob Nana. If you like what you hear, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and give us a rating and review. If you'd like to support the show financially, you can join us at patreon.com/asthestorygrows. Be a part of our community and join the ongoing conversation over on Discord. If you enjoy this episode, share it on social media with your friends. Much appreciated, and thanks for listening.
I never felt so young and alive as when I'm diving into a tune. And now I'm learning as I listen along, and the wheels are turning, and I started a song. One good word and I'm gone. Oh, as the story grows, the more I want to know, the more I want to show you. As the story grows, as the story grows. You can create something lasting and great, something passionate and real. And I'll bring in my own good feelings, I'll sing it with meaning. Let's just attack it and never look back. It's wild and fantastic.